Hey, is Marie going to cook for New Year's this time? My mother-in-law's immediate reaction was a wave of hands in front of her face followed by laughter. No way, that's impossible. My daughter-in-law couldn't cook to save her life. She's the hopeless housewife who can't even manage a New Year's feast. I handle all the cooking around here. Her laughter grated on my nerves. It wasn't a joke, nor just playful banter. It was a direct insult. I had finally had enough. It was time to stand up for myself. I'm Marie, 28 years old, married just last year. I'm a full-time housewife who actually enjoys cooking, even if my husband's taste is forgiving as long as it's edible. He's kind, and we live in a newly renovated large house with a spacious kitchen island I've always dreamed of. It should be the ideal life. But from the start of my marriage, there's been one problem. My mother-in-law. She fancies herself a culinary expert and sees me as a failure of a wife who can't cook. I could bear it if that's all she thought, but she's the type to make sure everyone hears about it. Just yesterday, she was loudly complaining to the neighbor's wife while I was hanging out laundry. My daughter-in-law can't even cook properly. Oh, it's terrible. I wonder what kind of education she had. My son is so unfortunate. I can't believe it, she exclaimed, her words like barbs that nearly snapped the clothespin in my hand. Enduring her criticisms of my cooking was one thing, but hearing her disparage my parents was intolerable. I held my parents in deep respect, having learned countless lessons from them. Yet my mother-in-law never bothered to understand or appreciate any of that. Instead, she chose to slander me daily. Today was no different. I could hear her sharp voice spreading gossip through the neighborhood. She doesn't even know how to season properly. If I don't cook, there's no flavor at all. Why did my son marry someone like her? The neighbors joined in, adding their own comments. Brad seems to have added tough to his plate. Why don't you teach her? I wish they would just stop, I muttered, my grip on the glass tightening until it cracked in my hand. In the evening when Gregory, my husband, arrived home, my mother-in-law was in the shower. Seeing an opportunity, I decided to share everything I had been holding back with him. Can't you do something about your mother? She's going around the neighborhood every day saying I can't cook. Can't you talk to her, Gregory? As I hung up the jacket he handed me, I opened up about my mother-in-law's behavior. Gregory isn't particularly fond of his mother, and he cares about me, so I expected him to defend me. I thought he would sympathize and say, that must be difficult. But his response was completely unexpected. Well, Mom has always been very particular about cooking, Gregory said, scratching his head and looking troubled. Particular about cooking, I almost blurted out. With all that heavy seasoning. I stared at Gregory in disbelief, but he remained serious. Come on, she's a good cook, right? Well, I don't really know much about good or bad cooking. Anyway, please get along with Mom. That's a wife's duty, isn't it? With that, Gregory left the room. Is this some kind of joke? That thought echoed in my mind. A good cook, a wife's duty. What does that even mean? A rush of frustration surged through me all at once. In truth, though I hate to admit it, my mother-in-law's cooking isn't exactly delicious. She's taken charge of all the cooking for the past year to keep me from doing it, but I've never found it enjoyable. She firmly believes that more seasoning equals better taste. Gregory, raised on that flavor, always finishes his meals without complaint, but I struggle to eat it every day. Consuming such heavily seasoned food isn't good for my health, and I worry it might even dull my taste buds. I managed to finish it somehow, afraid of the repercussions if I left any on my plate. Alone in the quiet of our bedroom, I let out a heavy sigh. The shock wasn't that Gregory didn't criticize his mother's cooking. It's a wife's duty, huh? It was that he didn't take my feelings seriously in moments like this. I longed for the taste of my parents' home cooking. As the year-end approached, the anticipation grew. It would be my first New Year since marrying into this household. It's customary for relatives to gather and enjoy a feast prepared by my mother-in-law. When Gregory mentioned this, I couldn't help but silently question, really? But outwardly, I just replied with an oh. The relatives who come every year to savor my mother-in-law's cooking must be accustomed to it by now, but I couldn't shake the feeling of sympathy for them. Despite my mother-in-law's criticism of my bland taste and culinary skills, I have confidence in my cooking abilities, instilled in me by my parents. I yearned to cook for everyone and perhaps refine Gregory's palate. With determination, I braced myself to broach the subject with my mother-in-law, knowing it was a long shot. Mother-in-law, regarding the New Year's celebration feast. Here's the plan. I called out to her as she energetically pulled out large plates and pots in the kitchen, I'll help too. But when my mother-in-law turned around, her expression already signaled refusal. Marie, you can't even cook properly. So how can you prepare food for the New Year's celebration? You know that not just our family, but all the relatives will be here, right? That's why I'm saying this. I'm married into this family. It's my duty as a wife to. I argued desperately, but my mother-in-law simply shook her head. No, no. Do you want to create an awkward atmosphere right at the beginning of the new year? Everyone comes for my cooking. We can't disappoint them. If you understand, please don't interfere. I could only suppress my frustration as I watched her back. The new year arrived, and relatives began to gather. There were about 20 of them, more than I had anticipated. Many I hadn't seen since the wedding. Marie, Happy New Year. It's been a while. Are you settling into married life? I greeted each relative warmly, ushering them into the spacious dining room that had initially amazed me upon moving in. The unusually large dining room seemed perfectly suited for such gatherings. Inside, my mother-in-law was already engaged in conversation with arriving relatives. Then, one of them asked, "By the way, is Marie preparing the feast this year?" My mother-in-law's immediate response was to wave her hands in front of her face and laugh. "That's impossible. My daughter-in-law can't cook at all. She's a hopeless housewife who can't even manage a New Year's feast. I handle all the cooking around here," she declared with an unpleasant laugh. It wasn't a jest or a casual remark. It felt like a direct insult aimed at me. I had finally reached my breaking point. "Mother-in-law, please let me prepare the New Year's feast this time. If it doesn't turn out well, you can always make a palate-cleansing dish," I suggested, breaking the tense silence that followed. After a moment, the room began to buzz with murmurs from the relatives. "Well, I certainly don't want a disappointing meal, but they say practice makes perfect, right? All right, fine. If it doesn't work out, Frida can step in." My mother-in-law finally relented, sensing the tide of opinion among the relatives shifting towards giving me a chance. "Very well then, Marie, you can take the reins this year." Her words carried a hint of reluctance. "But remember, I could always step in. Ladies and gentlemen, indulge this hopeless housewife's whims for once." Oh, I have plenty to say about this. My heart swelled with pride at the opportunity to showcase my cooking skills in front of everyone. It was time to turn the tables. All that remained was to give it my best shot. The meal turned out perfectly. As the beautifully arranged feast sat on the large platter, exclamations of admiration filled the room from our relatives. "Wow, it looks delicious. Well done, Marie. This isn't something just anyone could pull off." Amidst such praise, my mother-in-law, who had returned from shopping for the palate-cleansing dish, glanced at my spread. "It looks alright, I suppose, but it's probably bland." She emphasized the word probably, clearly reluctant to give credit. Then she added pointedly, "Well, I'd better get started on the palate-cleansing dish," and hurried into the kitchen. Disregarding her, I busied myself distributing paper plates and forks to the relatives. "Please, everyone, enjoy." Even as my mother-in-law headed towards the kitchen, her attention remained fixed on us. The relatives, in turn, accepted the food and sampled it. "This is," someone murmured, their voice quivering. My mother-in-law chuckled with apparent satisfaction. "See, I told you. This is why she's the incompetent daughter-in-law. Everyone, you don't need to force yourselves to eat. I'll prepare the palate-cleansing dish right away." Her tone was triumphant, but it was swiftly drowned out by sounds of delight. "This is the first time. I've never tasted New Year's food this delicious. It's restaurant quality. It's even better, like a meal from a fancy hotel." "Marie, where did you learn to cook like this?" My mother-in-law stood amidst the lively crowd, stunned into silence. With everyone's attention fixed on me and no one paying heed to my mother-in-law, I made up my mind to reveal the truth to everyone. My family owns a renowned French restaurant celebrated for its authentic cuisine, even recognized in the Michelin Guide. My father, now the fifth generation overseeing all culinary operations, and my mother, from a lineage of chefs, wholeheartedly supports him. Growing up, I absorbed the art of cooking by observing my parents. By the time I reached upper elementary school, I was earnestly learning from them. Though my brother is poised to inherit the restaurant, and despite my new life after marriage, the culinary knowledge passed down from my parents remains a source of pride within me. That's why I couldn't tolerate my mother-in-law's dismissive remarks and actions undermining my culinary skills. Denying my cooking is tantamount to denying my parents and the restaurant that has been our family's legacy for generations. I did mention this before we got married. Mother-in-law. My mother-in-law, often dismissive and condescending, seemed to view me merely as the daughter of a small countryside restaurant. And Gregory, indifferent to food, probably couldn't discern the difference between a family-run establishment and authentic French cuisine. I sometimes wonder why I married into this family, I muttered to myself. When I turned to the voice calling me, several pairs of eyes met mine, hesitant yet expectant. Can we have seconds? I want more too. Despite the generous portions of the feast I had prepared, it had been completely devoured. Suddenly, a wave of happiness washed over me, and I could feel tears welling up. Receiving praise for my cooking should have felt routine, something I'd known before I got married. Yet over the past year, I seem to have forgotten that sensation entirely. Yes, I'll prepare more right away. With determination, I hurried out of the room, passing by my motionless mother-in-law. Come to think of it, she had bought some ingredients. Regardless, I was determined to serve these guests to the best of my abilities. Mother-in-law, I'll use these ingredients, okay? I announced, but received no reply. The groceries remained untouched in the kitchen. As I reached to inspect the contents of the supermarket bag, someone entered the kitchen. Could you teach us how to cook too? I glanced up to find 5 women standing before me in a line. Their ages spanned from around mine to about my mother-in-law's, but all their eyes gleamed with the same eager curiosity. The food was amazing. We'd love to learn from you. Looking back, those words must have stirred something within me. Teaching cooking had never crossed my mind before. But seeing their admiration and realizing I could make a difference, I felt a newfound desire to share my knowledge as much as possible. That's what went through my mind. With a smile, I gladly agreed, and the room erupted with excitement. Everyone discussed how they would impress their husbands by improving their cooking skills, and so the spontaneous cooking class commenced. Observing us intently from afar, my mother-in-law silently tidied up, and when the dishes were finished, they were met with even more praise. I must admit, Frida's cooking tends to be a bit salty for my liking. Marie's dishes are delicate and refined, truly professional French cuisine. Mila beamed with joy at the recognition and applause from everyone. I felt a bit uneasy around my mother-in-law and offered a faint smile, but she remained focused on cleaning up without interruption. Just as I pondered how to break the tension, Gregory delivered the decisive statement. I actually prefer Marie's cooking. Mom's strong flavors make me concerned about salt and health. Going forward, Marie should handle the cooking regularly. With those words, my mother-in-law appeared to be completely taken aback, and before long, she quietly withdrew to her room. Afterward, news of my cooking abilities spread among the relatives, and soon I began receiving requests to teach cooking classes. Initially hesitant, I recalled the joy of the impromptu New Year's cooking session and decided to accept, realizing people valued my culinary skills. Through word of mouth, my reputation grew rapidly, and I found myself featured in the media as a housewife renowned for cooking authentic French cuisine. Now, requests for my teaching come from across the country. Life is unpredictable, and this unexpected journey even led to a feature about me in a cooking magazine where I spoke with my father. As for my mother-in-law, who once spread rumors in the neighborhood about my cooking abilities, she ceased commenting on culinary matters altogether after that day. Gradually, she stopped cooking altogether, leaving me with full authority over meals in our home. Despite the busyness, we now live together peacefully.